Welcome to another episode of Cadence Fishing TV. I'm fishing today at Edgbaston Reservoir, which is maybe just only a mile from Birmingham city centre. And it's a wonderful old venue and one that I haven't been to for, well, it's got to be 10 years now. I got down here quite early this morning before Chappie the cameraman, and I've already started to catch some absolutely amazing bream. I mean, look at that one. They're absolute monsters. I'm going to gently hold him up for you. But I've already had bream that must be touching 7 or 8 pounds. And this is another great example. Just hold him up gently for you and get him in the keep net. What an absolute beauty. Proper slab. Well, I mentioned I hadn't been here for a long time, and I asked some of the local anglers I know that fish here, and actually I didn't really get any information. Nobody had been fishing here. So I came down last night, just had a look around, checked out some of the pegs that I know normally are quite good. And my decision to fish here in the middle of the ballroom section was the fact that the wind was blowing really strongly over to this bank last night, and so I just sort of plumbed up with a lead on my feeder rod just to see how deep it was, and I actually decided to pre-bait. So I just selected an area around about 30 meters out, and I put around about 30 to 40 balls of brown crumb, just simple brown crumb with some molasses, 2 cans of corn and a couple of pints of old castors, and it's definitely done the trick, because we're already into the bream and we're already building up a wonderful weight. So what an amazing day already. Well, Edgbaston Reservoir used to be famous for match fishing. Going back to, I suppose, the early 90s, there used to be parks matches through the summer with a big final, and it also held international matches, so it was almost like a Wembley of fishing, really. But as with a lot of natural waters like Edgbaston, it kind of fell out of favour when the commercials came along. And I think it's true to say that obviously the potential's still there, and perhaps the fish have thrived on neglect. I've just got another lovely bream here. I'm having to really take my time with them because they're such lumps and they're really fighting. That one then, when I hooked it, actually did a bit of a run and took some line off the drag, so not like the normal boring plodding bream. These are really having a go. Go, another beautiful bronze slab. What a beauty, and that's absolutely immaculate. It's scale perfect. That one's got to be 5 or 6 pounds. Well, this is getting ridiculous. I just had another cast and it had only been in a minute, and I'm into another bream. When I started this morning, I put 3 or 4 big feederfuls of bait out at around about 30 metres, and then I put a hook length on, chucked it out, and I was already getting line bites. So the bream were obviously already there from that feed I put in last night. And this is actually my 10th bream now. I've had to sort of modify how I'm fishing. I started off conventionally with a paternoster rig and a tail of around about 4 or 5 foot long, and I was literally getting that many line bites. I think I was actually missing a few bites, and also felt I might run the risk of foul hooking some. So I've changed over to a completely different rig. I'm fishing a much shorter hook length, perhaps only around about a foot, and I'm fishing it on a bolt rig, and the bites are just so positive. I'm getting loads of line bites, and then when I get a proper bite, it's so obvious. Oh. I'll just try and hold this one up. He's too big to hold one-handed, that's for sure, and I don't want to damage him. Another absolute monster. Let's get him in the net. Well, the rod I'm using at the moment is the CR10 13 foot number 3, and I'm actually fishing it with mono rather than braid. The other 2 rods I've got set up are the 12 and 13 foot number 2, and they're pretty much my go-to bream rods. But like I mentioned, I just found, because I was catching such good sized bream, I just prefer the extra sort of cushion of using mono. The bites are so positive anyway, and as I'm not fishing at long range, I can only just about get that one in the net. I took the decision to fish with mono. I'm actually using 6 pound Pro Gold, and I'm using 019 hook length, which is around about 5 pound, and that's Pro Gold as well. Not sure if that's the biggest one of the session, but it's a proper lump. I'm just going to really carefully unhook it. Wow! How big's that one? The biggest bream I've ever caught was 10 pound, and that was in Denmark. I don't think that's 10 pound, but it's got to be 8 pound. Amazing. Well, I'm not sure if Chappie's been able to pick up the line bites, but I'm getting a lot of line bites almost as soon as the feeders hit the bottom. And what I've ended up doing is I've kept coming closer in. So I started at 30 metres, and I pulled a couple of turns in, clipped up again, and I'm still getting loads of liners. So I've actually clipped up at around about 25 metres now, and that bream shoal out there must be absolutely vast. But the last thing you want to be doing is when you're bream fishing like this is striking at line bites running the risk of perhaps foul looking a fish and losing it right in the shoal, because it could spook the whole shoal. And just by constantly taking fish from the edge of the shoal, that's the plan anyway, hopefully you're causing the minimum amount of disturbance to the fish. Well, the best bait at the moment, I'm using 2 halves of a dendrobina tipped off with a caster, but I have had some on corn as well and some on bunches of maggots, so it doesn't really seem to matter too much. This one's a bit smaller. It's a big old black one, this one. On a normal day I'd be saying that's a monster, but today perhaps one of the smaller fish that we've had. It's got to be 4 pound plus anyway. Amazing the different colours. Some of them are really dark like this one, and some of them are a lovely golden colour. You might notice that I'm not striking at all when I get a positive bite. In that case, the rod was jagging, so it obviously hooked itself and was dragging the feeder along the bottom. I don't strike, I just gently pick the rod up and connect with the fish, and then try and pull them away from the shoal. Whoa, that's another big slab. I think that's number 13 now. So I'm in shock still. Oh, look at that one, Monty. It's another beauty. That one's got to be 7 pound plus. I think we'll call that one a reservoir dog, eh, Mont? Let's get him in the net. Well, I wouldn't never do it in a match situation, but I'm going to have a little break. One of my mates has just brought me a lovely bacon sandwich from the cafe, so I think we'll have a bit of this month and then we'll have another chuck out. Well, after that little break, I went straight back out and was catching breams unbelievably. So one of my pals has come down and I've actually got another net in now. So I think this is number 15 or 16. So I think that angle there just shows what a beautiful progressive action this 13-foot number 3 is. So you've still got the power for casting when you need to go long chucks, but it's absolutely beautiful when you're playing fish like this. These bream have got serious attitude. I managed to get that one sort of fairly close and it's just woken up and gone absolutely mental. Come on. Whoa. Well, I really didn't know what to expect coming back to Edgbaston. I thought I'd catch a few bream after pre-baiting, but I didn't think I was going to get anything like this. That's another absolutely beautiful bream. What an amazing fish. When I pre-baited last night, I spread the bait out to quite a large area, probably between about 20 and 30 metres out, and I don't know, it must be in an area of a probably 20 metre radius. And when I started this morning, I did the normal thing of, obviously you've clipped up and I'm casting really accurately to keep dropping the feeder in the same spot. But it goes against really what I'm doing now. I'm not trying to cast too accurately because obviously there's a huge shoal of bream out there, and I'm still clipping up around about 25 metres out, but I am sort of spreading my casting around just in that general area where I pre-baited yesterday. I think if I really did keep casting in the same spot, I might have a problem with foul hooking fish, as I'm attracting such a huge shoal of fish into a very small area. Whoa, straight back in again. That had only been in for, I don't know, 30 seconds. But this positive rig's really working well. And the fish are obviously coming to the feeder, and having a short hook length means I'm getting very positive bites. I just can't even comprehend how many bream must be out there. It must be a huge shoal of fish. And I have to just emphasise again the importance of not striking at line bites, because that really could spook the shoal. But by fishing a heavier feeder like this and a bolt rig and a short hook length, it doesn't, oh no, that one's come off. Oh well, that one's come off, never mind. It's the first one I've lost. I was perhaps bullying that one a bit too much. But I'm just going to try and take you through the baiting up, casting, and hopefully hooking another bream. So best bait at the moment is 2 halves of a dendrobina tipped off with a caster, and I've got a mix here. It's mainly casters now. I'm just putting a little bit of chopped worm in, and I'm plugging it with the ground bait, just making sure everything's neat and compact, ready to cast out. And I'm just casting using that buoy as a target, just out 25 metres. And I reckon I'm fishing in around about 15 foot of water. So I'm just letting the feeder hit the bottom without moving it, and then just gradually tightening it up to the tip. I'm not worrying too much about setting the tip today because obviously the bites I'm getting are so positive. That's the 1.5 ounce carbon tip that I'm using, and once the line's just started to sink and settle, I just tighten the tip so that I've got it, and you can see there that was a bite straight away. Now I'm not going to do anything crazy because I just want to check, see if it's hooked or if that was a line bite. So I'm pretty sure that's on. You can see the tips jagging backwards and forwards, and there we go, another bream. Wow. What an unbelievable session. Unbelievable. Look at that, what an absolute beautiful bronze bream. I'm not even going to hold that one up, can you see it in the net, look? Totally immaculate and so solid as well. They really are chunky bream. As you can see, I'm trying to handle them in as little as possible. Just transfer them into the net. Just make sure that they're revived, and then it's got plenty of room in that second net. I'm in shock. So here we go, let's have another go. You can see the short hook length that I'm using there. That's 019 Pro Gold, which has a breaking strain of 4.4 pound. That's the hook I'm using. It's a Sensus 3180 BZ in a size 14. A lovely fine hook, but really strong as well, and very, very sharp. We've got a lovely wind on the reservoir today, and that's got to be helping with this, with the catching. It's nice and overcast as well, so it's hard to imagine a more perfect bream day, really. So there we go, just gradually tighten up to the feeder. The reels I'm using today on all three rods is CS8 4000, and I like to make sure that I match my reels when I'm feeder fishing like this, because I do like to count the turns that I'm fishing. So if I'm swapping between one rod and another, and there we go, I'm pretty sure that's a bite. Yeah, that's definitely a bite. We got another one. I was just saying, it means that you can swap between the rods and obviously have a good idea of matching the distance by counting the turns. I know it's not totally accurate, but for the most part that's accurate enough for me. So once I've got the fish away from the shoal, it's just a matter of keeping steady pressure and being careful once they come close under your rod tip like this one's just had a real good go. You'll often get that with bream, they'll come in quite easily, and once you start to bring them up into the shallow water, they'll start to have a bit of a fight. When I hooked this one, it really had a good go. Another beautiful bream. I think that's number 18. So I can't imagine what weight I've got. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, let's have a look at the bait that we're using today. Ground bait wise, I'm using a 50-50 mix of Bait Tech Pro Feeder and Bait Tech Special G ground bait. Now you'll notice that I've gone for the dark version on the Special G. When I came down last night, I was surprised to see how clear the water is here at Edgbaston nowadays. So I didn't want a light mix, I wanted a darker mix, and that's been a beautiful mix today. It's obviously very attractive to the fish, it's nice and fine, and it means you can vary the feed that you're putting through the feeder. So if I want to add particles, then I'll add more chopped worm casters, maybe some corn or even pellets. Just talking about chopped worm and caster, you can see there that I'm using quite coarse pieces of worm, so I'm not chopping them up very finely. Obviously we're having an exceptional day and I want to make sure that I'm feeding a good amount of worms. And what I've actually done is I've cut back on the concentration of worm once I've really started to catch well, so I'm actually adding a good amount of casters to that mix. So perhaps if it was harder, I'd be using a bigger concentration of worms and chopping them up really fine, just to sort of get the smell and attraction from the worms. And I'm just putting a few grains of corn in as well. I've had some bream on the corn today, but by far the best bait, I think I've mentioned, it's been fishing with worm and caster. They've absolutely seemed to have singled out the worm, so they're feeding very, very well. A couple of quick tips. I think I've mentioned it in previous videos, but I like to keep my ground bait in a sealed bag so that it's not open to the elements. I can take out ground bait as I need it for the session. So there you go, pretty simple bream tactics really, but proved to be very effective today. Well, I'm just unhooking a bream, so I'm just going to let him just revive himself in the net before I unhook him, and it gives me a good chance to show you the rig that I'm using. So that's the bolt rig I'm talking about. I've got the feeder running on top of a loop and it's trapped between that bead, and I've got a swivel bead on the bottom which I'm attaching my hook length to. So you can just see how short that hook length is. It's got to be just a foot, and look how perfectly that fish is hooked just in the lip. So it's nice that it's not deep hooked and damaged in any way. So I'll just get that bream in the keep net and we'll talk about the feeders. Whoa, he's all right. So the feeder that I've ended up using is a 40 gram matrix cage feeder. It's not a massive feeder, but the great advantage for me is the fact that it's so compact and heavy. So when it gets to the bottom, it stays in position, and it must be enhancing that bolt effect. So when the bream picks the bait up, obviously pulls the swivel against that bead, it hooks itself, and you get that really positive bite, either a classic bream bite where the tip just keeps going, or you get a really nice drop back and it starts jagging as the bream moves the feeder along the bottom. I think when bream are feeding so confidently like this, it can be difficult to, strange as it sounds, to pick up the bites. If you've got a long tail, the bream is perhaps moving around mopping up bait off the bottom, and it can move a long way before it registers a bite. So contrary to what you think, I think sometimes the best bites to have are those positive bites where the tip's jagging and the fish has hooked itself, rather than the pull round. Anyway, I'm going to get back out again. Oh, just before I do, I'll show you, that's the feeder I started with. It's a taped up rocket feeder. I think that's only 20 grams. And that was just enabled me to get a good amount of chopped worm and caster in my swim, just to help kick start it this morning. Once I started to catch well, then I switched over to this 40 gram cage feeder. When you are using chopped worm like this and you're not mincing it up too much, a great tip is to actually use bits of the worm that you're feeding as your hook bait. Obviously that's going to be what you're feeding and the fish are going to be feeding on. So I like to just take bits out of the chopped worm mix and hook that on, and sometimes I'll chop a bit off, so I've got 2 bits of worm. And the caster, for me, I don't think it's really why the fish take it, but using a caster like that just helps to stop the worm from doubling over the hook, so it just keeps the worm away from the point. Well, this is bream number 20, and hopefully if I get it out, we're going to make this our last fish. What an unbelievable session it's been today at Edgbaston. It really has exceeded what I was expecting. Unbelievable. But I think when you're fishing a big reservoir like this, it just highlights how important it is to pre-bait. I think it would be a big ask to just turn up and fish and expect to catch such a fantastic net of bream. So it was really quite inexpensive to pre-bait last night, but it's definitely helped us catch one tremendous weight of bream. It's another absolute beautiful bream. Well, they're like peas in the pod. Absolutely tremendous. Let's get this one in the net and we'll have a look at what we've caught. Well, Edgbaston Reservoir was the venue that I fished my first ever junior match when I was 10. And actually I caught 1 bream and came second, and that was over 35 years ago. And it's always been a favourite venue of mine, and one that I haven't been to for ages, but today has been absolutely stunning. I've had 20 beautiful bream ranging from 4 to 7 or 8 pounds. So I must have well over 100 pound in weight. I'm just going to put them back now nice and carefully because I don't want to lift them out and damage them. But this is my first net, and you can just see the size of those absolutely awesome bream. And the great thing is they're all going back absolutely fine. So there's one net, and I'll just put back the other net now as well. Well, there goes the second net, and what probably has made up my biggest ever bream catch in the UK. Thanks for watching.